Girls, what was the most obvious hint you dropped, and the guy just didn't get it? I threw my panties at him and he kept explaining God of War lore. We were talking about canoes, and I said I'm like a canoe because I'm wet and you can go inside me. He said canoes aren't really wet. When my boyfriend and I had just started dating, we were laying down watching a movie, but this was a small bed and he was being respectful and giving me space. I kept wiggling backwards so I could get closer to him and he kept inching backwards too. Since he thought I was just trying to get comfortable and he was in the way, he ended up sitting in a chair next to the bed. 3 years later we are still together, and I still think it's pretty funny. He told me that when he was in the chair he purposefully left his hand next to me in case I wanted to hold it, but I guess I missed that sign too. After chatting for hours on top of a mountain from sunset until like 2 a.m., sharing a blanket, me leaning my head on his shoulder, telling him he's attractive, etc., he turns to me and says, "How do you tell if a girl is into you?" I asked a guy on a festival to come take a shower with me. He didn't get it. He just repeated there was only one free shower and I was like, well, they are big, I'm sure it's fine, and he just looked confused and told me I could go first. We became close friends since that happened about 2 years ago, and this summer I spoke to him about it and he really had no idea. He did the biggest facepalm I've ever seen. On our first date, my current boyfriend and I went out to dinner, to a bar, and eventually back to his house to watch scary movies. After hanging out for almost 8 hours at that point, practically cuddling into him the entire time we were watching movies, dropping as many hints as I could, around 3 a.m. when we were both fighting to stay awake, I finally had to look his dumb ass in the eye and ask, "So are you going to kiss me or not?" Though he was totally oblivious. It did show his good heart. He was about to let me fall asleep on his couch and spend the night without even trying to kiss me. I knew he was a keeper after that. I'm not as brutally upfront as some of these people, but mine happened yesterday. How do I know a girl is flirting with me, he asks. She touches you a lot while you two are talking. I cannot relate at all. That never happens to me. I'm sure it does, I tell him and hit his arm. I can't think of any time that's ever happened. Invited him over to watch a movie, eventually laying my legs across his lap and hard flirting, but after 4 movies I had to finally make the move. Literally said I want to be yours and the dude just keeps smiling and goes on about random space facts. That one hurt a bit. We were discussing costumes and I sent a picture of me in my bunny suit and said I'd need help out of it. His response was telling me he hoped my roommate was home or that would suck. I had to tell him I was implying I'd like him to take it off me and it took him a minute to catch up. One time a girl straight up asked if I wanted to take my pants off and I didn't get it. I was like, nah, they're actually not uncomfortable at all. Guy here. Was invited back to study by one of the girls in my class at her apartment. We're about half an hour in and she says she might take a shower. I'm like, okay. Kinda random, but okay. Anyway, she starts telling me the door to the shower is broken so don't come in. Says it 3 or 4 more times. Again. I'm like, okay. Weird, she said that multiple times, but okay. Half an hour later the shower is still running. I can hear her singing and humming away, so I know she's okay and hasn't drowned. Thinking, gee, that's a long shower though. Water goes off and she comes out dressed and says you didn't come in. I'm confused as I'm like, WTF, she told me not to. She sits back down, clearly distracted and not wanting to study. We wrap up after 5 minutes. Drive home. Mate asks me how study was about a week later and the situation, which I hadn't given a single brain cell of thought to since. I explain to him. As I'm saying it out loud the penny drops. Guy here, but once had a girl drag me into the bathroom while at a college party saying she needed help finding her marker pen. We didn't find it and I figured out what was really going on a year later. I had a girl invite me round her house once just to show me her posters. They were all of Harley Davidson motorbikes, and she said she's never ridden a Harley before. Awkward silence, and after a few other bits of small talk I decided to be on my way. 2 years later I'm sitting on the bus and realize what she meant. Harley. Ridden a Harley. My name is Harley. Before my boyfriend asked me out, he kept hinting at the fact that we were both single and everyone thought we would be cute together. I was like, haha, yeah, not realizing he was trying to ask me out. We were playing Don't Drink and Drive on Mario Kart, just the 2 of us. I was trashing him, so L gave him a chance by lying sideways across his lap for the entire race. He didn't take the hint. We started dating 2 weeks after that. Complained I was a bit cold. So he gave me a blanket. I then told him there's space for two under the blanket. In an obvious flirting tone. He answered with no thanks. I'm not cold. I still tease him with it once in a while. We're married now. He invited me to his house to watch a movie after a few dates. He ended up playing League of Legends for hours while I was laying in his bed and asked him many times if he would like to join. Sorry, just one more match. We dated for 2 years. I went out of my way to come in early and talk to this guy every day for like a month before someone else told him I was into him. I also repeatedly told him I liked him. He thought I was just being nice. For Valentine's a couple of years ago, I mailed my husband a package. The note said, and I quote, "I want you now." I was ready to spring into some extra fun sexy time whenever he opened the package. I had to sit him down and explain a couple of hours later. He was like, "Oh. My fiancée thinks leaving the bedroom door open when she spent the night. When we were just friends, and she lived out of town, and there was absolutely no reason for me to think anything romantic was going on. Was obvious. I got up and closed her door because the AC was on, and was low-key miffed. I used to be oblivious. Probably still am. There was a girl at a local grocery store who was flirting with me, but of course, I didn't get it. After quite a bit of this, I leave town for a few months and we're corresponding via email. I can't remember why, but I was asking her a string of silly questions. Like, why is the sky blue? Chicken or the egg first? Where do babies come from? Etc. She answered them all, saving where do babies come from for last and answered it with, when you get back I'm going to show you. I got that one. A guy I'm currently seeing invited me camping earlier this month. We were cuddling and I noted how nice the showers are in the bathroom at the provincial park. I said they're really warm and lots of space for 2 people, trying to hint for him to join me for sexy time. This man without missing a beat says actually, you could fit like 10 people in those showers. We laughed about it really hard the next weekend and he said I knew what you were getting at but my brain just wanted to answer it logically. We matched on Bumble, a dating app where the girl has to talk first, and I started a convo with him. He thought I just matched him because we were friends. No, it's a dating app. We didn't start dating until almost a year after that. We are married now. Friend was complaining he was hot because of his long sleeve shirt. I said, oh, I'm sure you'd be just as hot without the shirt. He was so unaware but I finally just kissed him. I once was modeling clothes I planned to take on vacation for my boyfriend. After showing off a couple of outfits, I told him to close his eyes and changed into lingerie. He opened his eyes and I asked him what he thought. His jaw dropped and he said, you can't wear that outside. I put my clothes back on. This was some years ago. I was 22. Had been talking to this guy for a while, and was ready to lose my virginity. I was a college student living at home, but my mom and stepdad were on vacation celebrating their anniversary, and I figured this would be the perfect time to make my move. He and I already had a date scheduled, so before we went, I cleaned my room and the entire house from top to bottom, created a chill playlist on my computer to listen to, shaved, waxed every necessary inch of my body from the forehead down, put on sexy underwear, and waited for him to pick me up. We went out to the movies, and when he dropped me off at home, I invited him in, with the added context and in a leading, flirty tone of voice, that we would be all alone and had all the time in the world to do whatever he wanted. He said, that's all right. I'm sure you want to enjoy this time you get without your parents to be alone. He was sure, and he was wrong. I just stared at him for like 10 solid seconds in silence before I nodded, said yeah that's true, and got out of the car. The walk from my driveway to the front door was the real walk of shame, and I hadn't even gotten any good sex out of it. After that, I sat in my very clean house in my sexy underwear, eating pizza and wondering how that could have gone differently. It was my first time trying to seduce a guy into sex and it failed miserably. I laughed about it though, and I still laugh about it now. I just figured it wasn't in the cards for me yet. Ended up losing my virginity a few more years later to the guy I'm currently engaged to. So it worked out wonderfully. He's pretty good at picking up what I'm throwing down. LOL.